Professor Zekthul was having what he considered a perfectly normal Tuesday morning until a human decided to ruin his entire worldview. The Galactic Military Academy's orientation amphitheater buzzed with the nervous energy of first-day cadets who just realized they'd signed up for something that might actually kill them. The holographic projectors hummed ominously overhead, ready to display any planetary nightmare that the universe had to offer. 47 different species of young, eager, and increasingly terrified beings filled the tiered seating. Professor Zekthul cleared his throat with all 4 vocal cords, a sound like grinding metal that never failed to get attention. This was his favorite lecture of the year. Why the universe hates you and wants you dead. Cadets, his metallic voice resonated through the chamber's acoustic enhancement systems, you will encounter environments in your military careers that defy survival. Worlds so hostile that even our most advanced life support systems cannot guarantee your survival. The assembled alien cadets shifted nervously in their various configurations. This was the lecture that separated the serious military prospects from those who thought galactic service might be an exciting adventure. Professor Zekthul had been delivering variations of this speech for 37 years, and he took perverse satisfaction in watching overconfident young beings realize that the universe was actively trying to kill them. Today, we will examine the galaxy's most infamous Deathworld, he continued, activating the holographic display. A planet so hostile to life that our xenobiologists have classified it as Class 12, the absolute pinnacle of environmental lethality. The hologram materialized above the podium, showing a blue-green marble that looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. The assembled cadets leaned forward with morbid fascination. "Behold," Professor Zekthul announced with the solemnity usually reserved for funeral orations, "the world known as Earth." In the third row, Mika Volkov raised her hand. Professor Zekthul paused, slightly annoyed at being interrupted during his dramatic revelation. "Yes, Cadet?" He consulted his datapad. "Volkov?" Excuse me, Professor," Mika said politely. "But I'm from Earth." The silence that followed was so complete it had its own gravitational field. Professor Zekthul stared at her with the expression of someone who'd just been told that water was actually made of fire. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" "I'm from Earth," Mika repeated, as if this was the most normal thing in the universe. "Born and raised. So, I'm just wondering how I'm supposed to be impossible when I'm literally sitting right here." The professor's primary and secondary optical organs performed a series of rapid calibration movements. You must be mistaken about your planet of origin. Or perhaps there's been a translation error?" "Nope. Definitely Earth. Third planet from Sol, 1 moon, approximately 70% water coverage, also known as Terra in some databases." Mika looked around at the staring alien cadets with mild confusion. "Is this a trick question?" Professor Zekthul activated his data terminal with the frantic energy of someone double-checking their math after discovering they'd been teaching that 2 + 2 = 17 for 3 decades. "According to our planetary classification database," he said slowly, "Earth has surface radiation levels that would sterilize most known life forms within hours." "Yeah, we call that sunlight," Mika agreed cheerfully. "That's why we invented sunscreen. Temperature variations ranging from -40 to +60 degrees Celsius." "Sounds about right. Winter and summer can be pretty extreme. That's why we have seasonal clothing." The professor's voice climbed approximately 3 octaves. "Atmospheric composition includes a highly corrosive gas that causes cellular breakdown." "You mean oxygen?" "Yeah, it's great stuff. Very invigorating. We breathe it all the time." A crystalline cadet in the front row made a sound like wind chimes having an existential crisis. "She breathes corrosive atmosphere. Voluntarily. Every few seconds," Mika confirmed. "It's kind of necessary for the whole being alive thing." Professor Zekthul was now consulting multiple databases simultaneously, his 4 arms flying over different terminals as he cross-referenced information that apparently shouldn't exist. "The geological surveys indicate constant tectonic activity," he continued desperately. massive plates of planetary crust shifting and colliding with enough force to level cities. Oh, earthquakes. Yeah, those happen. Most of the time they're pretty minor. We just build our stuff to handle a little shaking. Minor? The professor's voice cracked. The seismic readings indicate energy releases equivalent to antimatter explosions. I mean, the big ones can be exciting, Mika admitted. But mostly we just get under a doorway and wait for it to pass. It's really not that big a deal. The holographic display was now cycling through Earth's environmental data at increasingly frantic speeds. Volcanic activity, hurricane systems, tornadoes, tsunamis, blizzards, deserts, Arctic conditions, and what the database ominously classified as apex predator saturation. The biological survey, Professor Zekthul read in a voice approaching hysteria, indicates the presence of organisms specifically evolved to hunt and consume other life forms. Massive carnivorous mammals, venomous reptiles, parasitic organisms, microscopic pathogens that cause systemic organ failure. Yeah, that's Tuesday, Mika said with a shrug. Nature's pretty metal, but that's what makes camping fun. The word camping hit the assembled alien cadets like a quantum torpedo. What? Asked a Zephyrian cadet with the careful pronunciation of someone defusing a linguistic bomb, is camping. Oh, going out into the wilderness for fun, setting up a tent, making a campfire, hiking around, maybe doing some fishing, basic outdoor recreation. Professor Zekthul's data terminal was now displaying what appeared to be a complete psychological evaluation protocol. Cadet Volkov, you are claiming that you voluntarily expose yourself to Class 12 environmental hazards for entertainment. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of extreme, Mika admitted. But it's really relaxing. There's something peaceful about being away from civilization, Just you and the wilderness. I spent last weekend camping in Yellowstone. Beautiful place, even with all the geysers and grizzly bears. The mention of grizzly bears caused 3 different species to activate their emergency medical alert systems simultaneously. Grizzly bears, Professor Zekthul read from his rapidly updating database, are classified as apex predator organisms weighing up to 680 kilograms, with claws capable of rending titanium alloy and bite force sufficient to crush vehicle armor. Yeah, they're pretty impressive, Mika agreed. Mostly they just want to be left alone, though. Basic bear safety is just common sense. Secure your food, make noise when you're hiking, carry bear spray just in case. Standard wilderness protocols. The professor stared at her, as if she'd just casually mentioned keeping antimatter bombs as pets. Cadet Volkov, he said with the careful tone of someone addressing a potentially unstable explosive device. Our medical sensors are indicating that your physiology is unusual. Your bone density appears to be approximately 3 times what our databases indicate is possible for a carbon-based life form. Your muscular structure suggests adaptation to gravitational forces that should compress most organisms into paste, and your nervous system appears to have been specifically evolved to function normally under conditions that would cause immediate systemic shock in any known species. Huh, Mika said, considering this. I guess Earth gravity is a bit heavy compared to most places. We're right around 9.8 meters per second squared, which I know is on the high side for habitable worlds. It's not on the high side, Professor Zekthul corrected, his voice approaching a level that could shatter crystal. It's approximately double the maximum gravitational force that galactic life support protocols consider survivable. Really? No wonder I feel so light here at the Academy. The low gravity is actually kind of nice. Makes it easier to get around. The implications of this statement hit the assembled cadets like a cascading series of quantum bombs. The human wasn't just surviving in conditions that should kill her. She was finding the Academy's carefully controlled environment too easy. Professor Zekthul made what his species considered a sound of complete intellectual surrender. Cadet Volkov, I'm ordering an immediate, comprehensive medical examination. Clearly, there's been some mistake. Either you've been genetically modified beyond any known scientific parameters, or you're from a different planet that happens to also be called Earth. Sure thing, Professor, Mika agreed amiably, pulling out what appeared to be a small bottle of liquid that was glowing ominously red. Mind if I finish my lunch first? The bottle's contents were immediately analyzed by 17 different emergency medical scanners, all of which promptly declared a biohazard alert. That substance, Professor Zekathul whispered, registers as a Class 7 toxic compound. Direct contact would cause immediate chemical burns to most known life forms. Mika looked at the bottle's label. Oh, this? It's just hot sauce, Carolina Reaper extract. Pretty spicy, but nothing too crazy. Want to try some? The offer caused a nebulite cadet to literally evaporate from stress. Professor Zekathul watched in horrified fascination as the human casually consumed what his instruments classified as industrial-grade chemical weapons, while treating it as a normal meal enhancement. Medical bay, he said into his communication device, his voice the whisper of someone whose worldview had just been thoroughly demolished. Prepare for emergency xenobiological assessment. Priority Alpha. And maybe contact the psychiatric department as well. I think I may need counseling. Mika finished applying her hot sauce to what the Academy's Nutrition Center had classified as mild nutritional supplement suitable for developing digestive systems, and looked around at the staring aliens with genuine confusion. Is everything okay? You all look kind of stressed. The Academy's medical bay had been designed to handle the healthcare needs of 47 different species, from silicon-based life forms that required mineral supplements to energy beings who needed electromagnetic field adjustments. It had never been designed to handle a life form that shouldn't exist. Dr. Vexisthera stared at her medical scanner as if it had personally betrayed her. In her 60 years of xenobiology practice, she'd seen species that breathed methane, reproduced through quantum entanglement, and fed exclusively on hard radiation. None of them had prepared her for whatever Mika Volkov was supposed to be. Run the bone density scan again, she ordered her assistant, a nervous crystalline being whose harmonic frequencies kept shifting to what could only be described as panic. Doctor, I've run it 17 times, the assistant replied, his crystalline structure resonating with stress patterns. The readings are consistent. Her bone density is 347% of what our databases indicate is possible for carbon-based life forms. Dr. Vexithara consulted her xenobiology reference manual, a comprehensive database that cataloged every known variation of biological possibility. According to every scientific principle she understood, Mika's skeleton should have collapsed under its own weight approximately 30 seconds after conception. What about the pain tolerance readings? Even worse, doctor. The neural response indicates pain threshold levels that should only be possible in beings with severe nervous system damage. Yet all other indicators suggest normal neurological function. Mika, sitting patiently on the examination table, looked up from the magazine she'd been reading. Is everything okay? You guys seem stressed. Dr. Vexithera looked at the magazine. According to her cultural database, it was something called Outside Monthly, featuring articles about extreme hiking destinations and survival gear reviews. The cover story was titled, Death Valley in Summer, Tips for Your Next Desert Adventure. Cadet Volkov, Dr. Vexisthara said carefully. Could you describe your typical recreational activities on your home planet? Sure. I like hiking, camping, rock climbing, whitewater rafting. Pretty normal outdoor stuff. Last month I did a solo backpacking trip through the Rockies. Beautiful country, even with all the bears and mountain lions. The assistant's harmonic frequency climbed into what his species considered the range of existential terror. Mountain lions, Dr. Vexithera repeated, consulting her database. Apex predator organisms weighing up to 100 kilograms with retractable claws and ambush hunting capabilities. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Mostly you don't see them unless you're really unlucky. Basic wilderness safety is just being aware of your surroundings and not hiking alone at dusk. Dr. Vexithera's scanner was now displaying Mika's immune system analysis. The results looked like someone had fed random numbers into a computer and asked it to generate impossible data. Your immune system, she said slowly, appears to be treating what our database classifies as lethal biological agents as minor environmental factors. Oh, you mean like regular Earth germs? Yeah. Our immune systems are pretty robust. We get exposed to all kinds of stuff from birth: bacteria, viruses, environmental toxins. Builds character. Environmental toxins? You know, car exhaust, industrial pollutants, pesticides, natural allergens, standard atmospheric contamination. Nothing too serious unless you have specific sensitivities. The doctor's medical scanner was making sounds that weren't in its normal operational parameters. It seemed to be experiencing what could only be described as electronic confusion. Meanwhile, in the Academy's research library, Professor Zekthul was having what his species called a comprehensive intellectual breakdown. 3 separate research teams were frantically cross-referencing every database they could access, trying to understand how their planetary classification system had missed something as significant as a habitable Class 12 Deathworld. The atmospheric composition alone should preclude complex life, reported Dr. Kexmar, the Academy's leading expert in planetary habitability. 21% corrosive gas, 78% inert filler, with trace amounts of what can only be described as industrial pollutants. The human describes this as fresh air, Professor Zekthul noted grimly. The gravitational forces would compress most carbon-based organisms into dense paste. She complains that our Academy gravity is too light and makes her feel bouncy. The radiation levels from their star should cause immediate cellular breakdown. They call it sunshine, and apparently lie in it voluntarily for recreational purposes. Dr. Kexmar stared at the data streaming across his terminal. Professor, I don't think we missed a habitable world. I think we discovered something much worse. Which is a planet that produces beings specifically adapted to survive in conditions that would kill everything else in the galaxy. Back in the medical bay, Mika was trying to be helpful by explaining basic Earth survival techniques to increasingly horrified alien medical staff. Fire starting is really pretty easy, she was saying, demonstrating with 2 sticks she'd found somewhere. You just need dry tinder, proper technique, and a little patience. Everyone should know basic firecraft. It's essential for wilderness survival. Dr. Vexithara watched in fascination as Mika produced actual flames using nothing but wood friction and what appeared to be pocket lint. On most civilized worlds, the doctor said carefully, uncontrolled combustion is considered an extreme emergency requiring immediate hazmat response. Really? Huh. Well, on Earth it's pretty basic camping stuff. Along with water purification, basic first aid, shelter construction, food foraging, navigation by stellar observation. Mika paused. I mean, this is all elementary outdoor education. Kids learn this stuff in school. The assistant's crystalline structure was now resonating at frequencies that suggested imminent structural collapse. Cadet Volkov, Dr. Vexithara said, consulting her rapidly updating database. Our records indicate that your planet Earth is classified as environmental hazard level Class 12. What does that mean? It means, the doctor said slowly, that it's the most hostile environment for life that our science recognizes as theoretically possible. Mika considered this. Honestly, that seems kind of harsh. I mean, sure, Earth can be challenging, but it's not like we're living on Venus or anything. Now that would be rough. Dr. Vexithara's medical scanner chose that moment to display the final analysis that would change galactic xenobiology forever. According to every metric they possessed, humans weren't just adapted to survive on Earth, they were specifically evolved to thrive in conditions that represented the absolute upper limit of environmental hostility. Professor Zekthul to Medical Bay, came the voice over the communication system. We've completed our planetary classification review. Go ahead, Professor. Earth isn't just Class 12. According to our updated analysis, it exceeds our classification system entirely. We're going to need to create a new category. Dr. Vexithara looked at Mika, who was now teaching her assistant how to tie what she called basic survival knots using medical tubing. What classification are you recommending? Class 13. Hostile beyond previous theoretical limits. The good news is that it explains Cadet Volkov's impossible physiology. The bad news is that we've accidentally recruited a survival specialist from the galaxy's most dangerous planet. Mika looked up from her knot-tying demonstration. Did someone just call Earth dangerous? That's kind of sweet, but honestly, you should see what we do for fun. Ever heard of extreme sports? The question hung in the air like a quantum bomb waiting to detonate. Dr. Vexithara made what her species considered a sound of intellectual surrender. Cadet Volkov, Exactly what constitutes extreme sports on your planet? Oh, skydiving, bungee jumping, free climbing, base jumping, wingsuit flying, volcano boarding, shark cage diving, ice climbing. Mika counted off on her fingers. Pretty much anything that gets your adrenaline pumping. Great stress relief after a hard week. The silence that followed was the kind usually associated with the heat death of universes. Professor, Dr. Vexathera said into her communicator, her voice carrying the tone of someone delivering news about the end of everything. We need to convene an emergency faculty meeting. We may have a bigger problem than we thought. Bigger than recruiting someone from a Class 13 Deathworld? Dr. Vexathera watched Mika cheerfully demonstrate what she called emergency first aid techniques that looked like battlefield surgery to alien eyes. Much bigger, Professor. I don't think they sent us their military specialist. I think they sent us their idea of a normal civilian. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened with the kind of urgency usually reserved for imminent galactic invasions or the discovery of universe-ending phenomena. Representatives from 43 species materialized via quantum transmission, their various forms of agitation filling the council chamber with what could charitably be called controlled panic. Chancellor Vex Prime called the session to order with approximately 17 fewer diplomatic niceties than usual. Colleagues, we face an unprecedented situation. The planet Earth, previously catalogued as uninhabitable, has apparently been producing life forms for millions of years. Not just any life forms, interjected Representative Krillthax of the Zephyrian Defense Alliance, his scaled features showing patterns that indicated species-wide concern. According to the Academy's preliminary reports, they've evolved beings specifically adapted to survive in Class 13 environmental conditions. Class 13, gasped the Crystalline Federation's delegate, her harmonic frequency climbing to levels that suggested structural stress. Our classification system only goes to Class 12. Exactly, Chancellor Vex Prime replied grimly. We had to create a new category. Earth doesn't just exceed our previous understanding of planetary hostility. It exists in a realm of environmental danger we didn't know was possible. Representative Morgeth of the Nebulite Collective, whose gaseous form was swirling with colors indicating deep unease, raised a priority question. What are the immediate threat assessment implications? That's complicated, the Chancellor admitted. We're not dealing with a hostile species. Our human exchange student appears to be genuinely friendly and helpful. The problem is that her idea of basic life skills includes capabilities that exceed our military special forces training. Meanwhile, back at the Academy, Mika was about to demonstrate exactly why the Galactic Council was having what amounted to a civilizational panic attack. The Academy's survival training course had been designed by the finest military minds in galactic space. It was called The Crucible, a series of environmental challenges that pushed alien cadets to their absolute physiological limits. The course had a 40% completion rate, and those who failed required extensive medical intervention. It was considered the ultimate test of military readiness. Mika looked at the course overview and frowned. This is it? This is your advanced survival training? Instructor Velkara, a grizzled veteran of 17 different planetary conflicts, stared at her with the expression of someone whose life's work had just been casually dismissed. Cadet Volkov. This course is designed to simulate the most extreme survival scenarios that military personnel might encounter. Right, but where's the rest of it? The rest of it? I mean, this looks like basic wilderness orientation. Where are the weather challenges? Environmental hazards? Wildlife encounters? Altitude training? Instructor Velkara consulted her course materials with growing confusion. Cadet. The first challenge involves surviving in temperatures as low as -10 degrees Celsius. Okay, so, light jacket weather. What's the challenge part? The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Instructor Velkara's worldview undergoing structural collapse. Perhaps, she said carefully, you should simply attempt the course. Mika shrugged and stepped onto the starting platform. Sure. Mind if I just do it in my regular clothes? This seems pretty casual. What followed would later be described in military training manuals as the day basic human physiology broke our understanding of survival science. The first challenge involved crossing a simulated Arctic environment designed to test cold weather endurance. Alien cadets typically required 17 different pieces of specialized equipment and took approximately 6 hours to complete the section. Mika walked through it in 23 minutes wearing a t-shirt. "This is actually pretty nice," she commented to the monitoring team. "Reminds me of winter camping in Minnesota. Though the humidity's a bit low, you guys might want to add some wind chill to make it more realistic." The second challenge was a desert survival scenario that tested heat tolerance and water conservation. Standard completion time was 8 hours with mandatory rest periods. Mika jogged through it in 45 minutes. "The heat's not too bad," she reported cheerfully. "Feels like a summer day in Phoenix. Although you might want to add some humidity and maybe throw in a sandstorm or two. As survival training goes, this is pretty mild." By the fourth challenge, a mountainous terrain test that simulated high-altitude conditions, the monitoring team had given up trying to understand what they were witnessing. "Oxygen concentration is only 68% of standard," reported the course supervisor, his voice carrying the tone of someone providing last rites. "Yeah, it's a bit thin," Mika agreed, not even breathing hard as she scrambled up what was supposed to be an impossibly steep cliff face. "Feels like about 8,000 feet elevation. Pretty standard for backcountry hiking. You should try 14,000 feet sometime. That's when it gets interesting." The final challenge was designed to break even the most hardened military veterans. It combined all previous environmental stressors with what the course designers called maximum psychological pressure simulation. Mika completed it while humming what her cultural database identified as classic rock music. "Course completed," she announced, checking her watch. 2 hours, 15 minutes. Not bad for a warm-up. When does the actual survival training start? In the observation booth, Instructor Velkara was staring at monitoring equipment that was displaying readings she'd never seen before. "She just completed the crucible," she whispered to her assistant. "And she thinks it was a warm-up exercise." "Instructor, should we tell her that our previous course record was 18 hours? "No," Velkara replied. "I don't think my ego could handle hearing her response." The academic implications of Mika's casual demolition of Galactic survival training began spreading through the educational community like wildfire. Professor Zekthul found himself leading emergency curriculum revision committees while simultaneously trying to rewrite 40 years of xenobiology research. "Every textbook," he announced to his department, "every research paper, every theoretical framework we've developed for understanding planetary habitability and survival science, it's all wrong." Dr. Keksmar was frantically updating his research on environmental adaptation. "According to our previous models, life shouldn't be possible on Earth. But not only is it possible, it's produced organisms that make our Deathworlds look like resort destinations. We're going to need to completely recalibrate our understanding of what constitutes environmental stress," added Professor Lilveth from the Comparative Biology Department. "Compared to Earth, the planets we've been calling hostile are apparently mild tourist attractions." The research papers began appearing within hours. Fundamental errors in planetary habitability classification. Earth, a case study in academic incompetence, and the paper that would define the field going forward. How we completely misunderstood everything about survival science. The military implications were even more staggering. Defense forces across the galaxy were realizing they'd been preparing for combat in environments that humans would consider vacation destinations. General Morvek of the Galactic Defense Corps issued an emergency bulletin to all military commanders. "Immediate tactical reassessment required. Previous environmental threat protocols inadequate. Human civilian population possesses survival capabilities exceeding our special forces training parameters." The economic shockwaves followed immediately. The galactic survival equipment industry, worth approximately 14 trillion credits annually, faced complete obsolescence as human techniques proved superior to advanced alien technology. "They use pointed sticks and plant fiber," reported the Survival Technology Consortium's emergency analysis. "Their primitive tools are more effective than our quantum-enhanced survival systems." How is that possible? According to preliminary analysis, they understand environmental adaptation principles that we haven't discovered yet, or possibly forgot, or possibly never needed to learn, because we evolved on planets that don't actively try to kill everything. The emergency order came down from the highest levels of Galactic military command. Effective immediately, Earth would become the primary survival training location for all Galactic defense personnel. The implications were terrifying. If human civilians possessed survival skills that exceeded alien military training, what did that say about human military personnel? What did it say about humans who actually specialized in survival training? Admiral Zexavar transmitted the order directly to Academy Command. Establish Earth as mandatory training destination. Appoint human exchange student as chief survival consultant. Priority Alpha authorization. Do not, repeat, do not, ask her about human military capabilities until we're prepared for the answer. In her quarters, Mika was reviewing her new job offer with mild confusion. Chief survival consultant sounded impressive, but she couldn't help wondering if she should mention that her qualifications were basically just grew up camping and took some outdoor education classes in college. She was also wondering if anyone would be interested in hearing about some of the more creative outdoor recreation that humans had invented, things like extreme sports, adventure racing, survival competitions. But that could wait. For now, she had a galaxy to teach about basic wilderness survival. How hard could it be? 6 months after what historians would call the Great Survival Revelation, the galaxy had reorganized itself around a simple, terrifying truth. Humans were apex survivors from a planet that actively tried to kill everything. Mika stood in the main briefing amphitheater, looking out at her latest class of alien cadets with the patience of someone who'd explained fire safety to children 3,000 times. "Welcome to Survival 101, Introduction to Walking Outside," she announced cheerfully. "Today, we'll be covering basic human locomotion in uncontrolled environments." The assembled alien cadets shifted nervously in their environmental suits. Despite being the galaxy's finest military personnel, they were equipped with enough life support equipment to sustain a small space station. The human instructor wore hiking boots and a t-shirt reading, "I climbed Mount Washington and all I got was this lousy hypothermia." "I know some of you are concerned about the oxygen concentration," Mika continued, gesturing toward the perfectly normal Colorado air. "It's about 21% oxygen, perfectly safe for extended exposure." A crystalline cadet raised what might have been a hand. "Instructor Volkov, our environmental suits are detecting toxic atmospheric contamination." Mika checked her data pad. "Oh, that's just pollen. Spring allergies are pretty common. Some humans might sneeze a bit, but it's nothing serious." The medical monitoring team made notes that roughly translated to, "Human instructor dismisses atmospheric toxins as minor seasonal inconvenience." "Today's exercise is a nature walk," Mika explained. 3 kilometers of mixed terrain at a leisurely pace. We'll stay on marked trails and avoid areas with significant wildlife activity. The leisurely walk began with Mika leading 47 of the galaxy's finest soldiers along what humans called a beginner-friendly hiking trail. Within the first 100 meters, 3 alien cadets required medical intervention for altitude adjustment, 2 needed emergency atmospheric supplementation, and 1 nebulite cadet had what could only be described as an existential crisis upon encountering a squirrel. "These small mammals," reported Cadet Velthax through his environmental suit's communication system, "appear to be engaging in resource acquisition behaviors that suggest advanced tactical intelligence." Mika looked at the squirrel, which was collecting acorns with the focused intensity that aliens apparently interpreted as military reconnaissance. "Yeah, that's just a squirrel," she said. "They're getting ready for winter." Pretty normal behavior. It's preparing for environmental warfare. It's preparing for cold weather by collecting food, like most animals do. The concept that animals engaged in seasonal preparation without advanced planning algorithms apparently required a complete revision of alien zoological understanding. By the end of the 3-kilometer walk, Mika had inadvertently triggered crisis-level research into human educational systems, child development practices, and the terrifying implications of a species that taught survival skills as recreational activities. The diplomatic consequences had been swift and comprehensive. Earth's status within the Galactic Federation had been upgraded from protected developing world to strategic survival resource practically overnight. Human diplomats, who had spent decades trying to prove their species was ready for galactic citizenship, suddenly found themselves fielding requests for military training consultants and survival expertise exports. Ambassador Patricia Reeves stood in the Federation Council chambers, trying to process the fact that her biggest diplomatic challenge was now managing demand for human outdoor education, rather than convincing aliens that humans were worth taking seriously. The Zephyrian Defense Corps is requesting a 6-month survival training program, she reported to Earth Command. The Crystalline Federation wants to establish a permanent military academy in Alaska. And the Nebulite Collective has offered to trade 3 star systems for exclusive access to what they're calling advanced human wilderness integration techniques. What exactly are they asking for? Summer camp, Ambassador Reeves replied with the tone of someone whose entire worldview had been gently detonated. They want to send their military elite to summer camp. The economic implications had been even more staggering. Human camping equipment, previously considered primitive by galactic standards, was now worth more than most starships. A basic hiking backpack could trade for advanced space technology. Swiss Army knives were being classified as multi-purpose survival systems and selling for prices that could fund small wars. The Galactic Survival Equipment Consortium had filed for bankruptcy within 3 months of discovering that human children's playground equipment was more effective than their military-grade environmental suits. Mika, meanwhile, had become the galaxy's highest-paid educational consultant by teaching aliens skills she'd learned in elementary school. Her course catalog read like a parody of human normalcy. Introduction to weather, basic animal recognition, fire safety and advanced concepts in wearing appropriate clothing. The irony wasn't lost on her as she watched General Kex Thule, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Forces, struggle with what humans called rock climbing, and what his species apparently considered vertical terrain assault protocols. Remember to use your legs, not just your arms, Mika called out encouragingly. Find good handholds, test each grip before you commit your weight, and don't look down if heights make you nervous. General Kexthul was currently 3 feet off the ground on what human children would recognize as basic playground equipment. His military escort was monitoring his vital signs and maintaining communication with 3 separate medical teams. Instructor Volkov, he called down, his voice tight with what his species considered maximum stress. How high do human children typically climb? Mika looked at the rock wall, which was approximately 15 feet tall, with safety ropes and foam padding. Oh, kids love this stuff. Most elementary schools have climbing walls in their gymnasiums. It's pretty standard physical education. The silence that followed this revelation was filled only by the sound of alien worldviews undergoing structural renovation. That evening, Mika received her next assignment. Design an advanced survival course for graduated alien military personnel. She sat in her office, looking out at the Colorado mountains, and wondering how to explain that what they considered extreme environmental challenges were just normal weather patterns. Tomorrow, she'd probably have to explain that hurricanes were just windy days, and that humans regularly chose to live in places with earthquakes, tornadoes, and volcanic activity, because the real estate was affordable and the views were nice. She made a note to start small. Maybe introduce the concept of camping without environmental suits, before moving on to advanced topics like walking in light rain or existing at sea level without supplemental oxygen. The galaxy, she reflected, was apparently a much gentler place than anyone had realized, which probably explained why everyone seemed so impressed with basic human survival skills. She wondered what they'd think when they found out about extreme sports.